Hi guys, welcome back to this channel, and this is your favorite tech girl and your host Aarushi. And in today's session we're going to be talking to you about something very important to all of us: how to crack any interview. Hell yeah. But before we do, quick introductions. Hi guys, my name is Aarushi. I have about 7 years of experience building tech products. In these 7 years, I have worked as a developer, then I did my MBA, started doing marketing, moved to product management, and now I also create content. And in these 7 years, I have interviewed a lot of people. I've given a lot of interviews, and I don't think I've ever been rejected from an interview. And that is not luck. That is not me doing something exceptionally well. That is just a game of confidence. And in this video, I'll tell you how you can do it as well. Now, of course, a few call outs here that obviously what I'll be talking about will be more generic. It will not be the hard skill round or the hard abilities round that most interviews also talk about, but there's an underlying concept of confidence that sustains throughout any kind of interview that you ever go for, and I'll be talking to you about that. Secondly, of course, you just do the preparation that I tell you and you don't do any other preparation for your hard skills, well, then I can't guarantee that you will clear the round. But if you just do the hard skill and you don't know and you don't do what I'm telling you, well, then you will also not pass. So without further ado, let's get going. Now, on the interview section, there are basically two parts to it. It is, like I said, a game of confidence, a game of making sure that you're projecting yourself as the best version of you. And now this projection or this confidence usually happens in two phases. The first is the pre-preparation, or the preparation that takes into account and the hard work that you've done before the interview. That is what gives you confidence during it. And then there's also an angle of how you handle yourself, your body language, the words you're using, the way you're saying, the way you're speaking, you're smiling. It's a lot of things that happens there as well. So we'll break it down into two aspects: the preparation and the during interview part of it, what tips I can give you for it. Now, in the preparation section also, there are two parts. One is where you're collecting content, you're learning about how to give the right answer. And the second is how you can hone yourself, how you can polish yourself. So about the first one, how do I collect the information that I need to collect? The first thing that I will recommend to anyone who is going to give an interview soon, do research about the job profile and the company and see if you can find usually asked question for that job profile in that company. So example, if I'm going to interview at Google as a product manager, then I'll quickly go and Google product management questions asked at Google. There are a lot of websites like Glassdoor, Reddit, Quora, and I've linked to all of them below that you can check out. There'll be a lot of people who have answered these questions. If not, you can ask it yourself, and I'm sure someone will reply. Now, this will happen in the case if the company that you're going to is well known, and it doesn't need to be someone as big as Google, but it could be a smaller startup which is big in your own country but not world known, right? However, if you still couldn't find the questions, then I would just recommend you search commonly asked questions for that profile. Why do I say that? Because see, your interviewer also is a human. He'd also like to learn what kind of questions they should ask. So what will they do? They will Google and they will check what are the kind of questions that are asked by other pioneers in their own domain. So let's say if I am an e-commerce company and I'm pretty young, and someone in this company needs to hire and they're looking to do an interview, that person would one day before the interview go online and try to search what are the questions asked by Amazon or any other big e-commerce company in the region. So that's what you do. You just figure out what are the questions usually asked for that role, and you should be good. So that's point number one. Point number two is you look at your resume. Now, your resume is the only document that the interviewer has at hand when you go in for the interview, and that's going to actually make sure that a lot of your conversations happen on your CV. So if that's gonna happen, you have to be prepared. If you end up mumbling on something on your resume, that gives a very bad face, and it just the interviewer just loses trust on anything that you're going to be saying after that. So make sure that you prepare your resume. Now, while you're preparing your resume, what does that really mean? I mean, I've done what I've done and I've written all of that in my resume. I can always answer questions about it. But what if you forget the data? What if you forget what you did? What if you mumbled, you couldn't what if you couldn't frame your sentences? Well, any of that could happen if you're not prepared well. So I would say use the STAR approach. Now, what is the STAR approach? Situation, task, action, and result. So basically, let me give you an example. So in my CV, let's say there was a pointer that I increased the conversion by driving an NPS survey. Let's say that's what I did. Now, if that's what says on my CV, how will I explain this? I'll talk about the situation. I'll say the NPS was coming really down and the organization was really worried about it. The task at hand was to figure out a way to improve the NPS. The action that I took was to start capturing it at the right places so that we can actually understand what the issue was, where it was, and the result was we were able to measure and capture it and understand that, these were the 5 places where the NPS was really breaking, and we fixed it. See, the situation, organization was worried about it, task, I had to improve it, action that I took, I put it everywhere, and result, it improved the NPS. Voila! That's the best way to describe any resume point that you ever have. In fact, not just a resume point, if you want to talk about any situation in your life, follow the STAR approach. It just structures things really well for any person to understand. So now this is about your preparation part. After that, after you understood what kind of questions will be asked, either from your CV or outside your CV, and you have understood how to answer them. And to understand how to answer them, you can look at a lot of YouTube videos. You can ask people around you. Again, on the same Glassdoor and Reddit websites, people would have also answered how to answer these questions and so on. So once you've understood what's the way to answer these questions, now comes the second part, which is polishing yourself, polishing your answers. So the first thing that I would recommend is to answer to yourself. Maybe look at a mirror or write down your answers to all of those questions so that you've structured them using the STAR approach within your head, and you've sort of memorized how you want to go about it. Now, I wouldn't recommend you to literally memorize it, but you should know the key points. Like for example, this video that we're doing, I have my script written all over here, but it's just this, it's a diagram. It's not, I've not actually written down everything, but I have written down the key points that I want to talk about, right? So it's the same thing that you have to do. Write down the key points for all the key questions and prepare within yourself. After that, do the second thing. Either you can do like I am doing, you can record yourself and listen it over, or a better thing would be to find someone who can do a mock for you. I just can't stress enough on the importance of mock interviews. Never ever have I ever given an interview without doing mocks. And that is the reason, that is the actual secret for me having cleared every interview that I've ever given. I make sure, like if the position that I'm in right now, I applied for a senior product manager position, and even for that, I made sure I found friends who were SPMs themselves to take a mock for me. And that's it, there's no shame in that. In any position that you go, there's no shame in that, in asking for help. So find out people who are in the same position that you're interviewing for, or maybe a level or two senior than that, so that people, let's say if you're applying for an APM position and you reached out to someone like me who interviews APMs, that's the best way, because I am the right person, who can give you the best advice. But if you ask an APM also to interview you, but someone who's cracked interviews before, they can also help you a little. So whoever you can find, but they should be someone you are comfortable with. There should be someone whose feedback you can easily take, because that is the most important part after this. Once you've given the mock interview, you should be okay with all the feedback that you get and be okay to work on it. So find someone who can do a mock for you. Be open to the feedback that they give to you, and make sure that there's someone who understands what the interview is all about. Don't give it to someone who's to your mother, like she doesn't know it, right? Of course you can do one round with her just to feel comfortable and confident, but you have to give it to someone who's actually in the right place, in the right at least in the right job profile, right? So that's the preparation angle of it. That's how you prepare for rocking that interview. But now I've done all of my preparation, I feel really confident, I feel good, I know my resume, I know all of my star stories, I have done it. Comes the D-Day and I look at the interviewer and he feels that I'm dull. We don't connect a lot. I mean, he just keeps looking around. 15 minutes into the interview, he's yawning and it's just not looking good, and I just start going crazy, lose my confidence, blah, 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 and it's a bad interview, it's a reject. What went wrong? Well, in this case, what went wrong is you were probably not able to connect well with the interviewer. This part is extremely important. Every time in the recent past, and this is something that I've been doing recently, I have connected with someone for an interview. I try to make sure that it's a friendly conversation. It's not something that just stays, it's not a conversation that just stays for the interview, but it stays after and before it as well. Now, before is hard, people are a little bit reluctant, they might not like to stay connected, they might not want to connect with someone they're going to be interviewing soon, but after, if you've had a good conversation, I'm sure they'll be happy to talk to you on LinkedIn as well. That is a good proof if the interview went well or did not. So if you've given an interview and you reach out to the interviewer on LinkedIn and they don't connect with you, sorry my friend, probably wasn't that great. Anyway, so how do we connect with the interviewer? Now there are again two angles to it. The first is the physicality of you. How do you present yourself physically? And the second is, what do you communicate, the mental or the non-physical aspect of it. It could be your the way you speak, the way you present yourself, your gestures and so on. So there's a body language and a mental and a physical part, mental and a verbal part of it, and then there's the physical part of it. Now let's cover the physical part first. I think a lot of people, like everyone who makes videos or content about interview preparation, would say dress well. And dress well, I don't mean that you dress in something that's uncomfortable for you. Dress in something that's comfortable, that makes you feel like really powerful. For example, for me, I would wear something like a jacket because it just makes me feel more comfortable, more professional, and that's just how it makes me feel. Maybe someone else might not like wearing a jacket. They might feel that a shirt gives them more confidence, or maybe wearing a suit gives them more confidence, or maybe just wearing a t-shirt gives them more confidence. So you obviously, wearing a t-shirt works for developers, for coders, but it doesn't work for everyone. So you also have to figure out what works in your domain, what's professional. But yes, you can play around with it a little bit, right? So you dress comfortably, but dress in a way where it projects a bit of power. It gives you that feeling that, okay, I am looking good, I am looking professional, I'm looking powerful. Heels, they work really well for me, but it depends, who you are and what works for you. So don't be uncomfortable. That's the first thing. Be comfortable, but be powerful. Now that's on, what you're wearing. Apart from that, smile. I mean, it goes a long way. If you are someone who's just smiling through the interview, you give a very confident outlook. You project an image of someone who, is comfortable where they are, and that's the first thing that's very, see, at the end of the day, the interviewer is going to be a colleague for you eventually, right? And if they see you as someone who's comfortable around, if I'm the interviewer and I feel that you're comfortable around me, I'll be comfortable around you as well. See, both of you have the same feeling at that when meeting a stranger, right? So if you make them comfortable, they'll just, it's just very natural for them to like you, and that's a great place to be. All of these soft angles, I'm just digressing a bit, but at times you don't realize, but that interview is just a conversation at the end of the day. And these softer elements, making them feel comfortable, making sure that you are comfortable, making sure that you seem confident and someone, someone they can have a conversation with, that goes a long way in setting the interview well. If you fumble a little, they'll let that slide because they already like you a bit. So if you want to make sure that you get those leeways, and it's okay if the interview is not perfect, but they still like you as a candidate after it, you have to make sure that you do all of these things right. So again, the physicality of it, dressing well, dressing comfortably, and the smile on your face, appearing confident, that's the physicality of it. But then there's also, like I said, a mental and a verbal angle to it. On this, I'll give you a few tips here. The first is, when you're speaking to them, again, like I said, it's a conversation. It's just, you're talking to someone. So appear or project it in a way where they are already a colleague of yours. In that conversation, don't give them that power. Don't give too much of that power that, oh my God, you are somebody who's interviewing me, who's judging me. Oh my God, what if you judge me, incorrectly, or you don't judge me well, or whatever. Go with an angle that you're already a colleague of mine, and the way you'll talk to any colleague, that's the way you'll talk to them. Give yourself the respect that you deserve, that you want them to give to you. That's point number one that I'll give to you. The second thing, and this is specifically for not just product management job, but any job that requires a little bit of logical thinking, and that's something that they will evaluate. Whenever you get stuck in something, if you don't know the answer, if you've been cornered, then just use a logical approach. Now for product managers, I recommend using what's the problem. That's my basic question. Trying to understand what the problem is and who is the person that problem is for. So the user and their problem, just trying to understand that. And the third thing, what is the metric that you're trying to improve with this? If you're able to understand these three things, you can solve anything logically. So make sure you keep that structure in your head. If you're ever cornered in a question, just figure out these three things. Now it could be about your resume. They maybe asked you something about your resume and you don't know how to put it. Tell about the user, tell the problem, and tell why it was important for the organization, what metric it was impacting. If not that, if it's about some case that they've given to you, again, these three things will be a great starting point. Of course, there are tons of structures that I can give you for answering specific product questions, but those for later. But generally, if you're giving any interview that takes logical thinking, that's the approach. For marketeers, I say the STP method is really great. So you segment, target, and position your product. So if you want to market it to, let's say, a group of teenagers. You figure out that there are males and females and cisgender people, and then you may decide that males react differently, women react differently, but women are your biggest target group, so you target to them, and then you figure out how do you position it to women and so on. So my point is that you will have one specific structure that's can be applied to most of your domain's problems. In marketing and product, these are the approaches that usually work. In fact, these approaches should work for most of the logical cases, but otherwise, figure out that structure. Ask people who are already in your domain for that structure. And finally, if in doubt, speak the truth. Do not try to bluff, because see, the person sitting in front of you would feel played if they understand your lie. There's no point putting yourself in that position, right? Or if you can justify the lie, maybe you were close enough to the situation, maybe you were not involved yourself, but you know all the details, go ahead, but then prepare. In your preparation section, make sure you've written out that story well, you've explained it to multiple people before, so that you don't fumble, you believe in it and so on. But otherwise, if you're cornered, please don't lie, say the truth. That goes a long way. Accepting the honesty, it really goes a long way. So with that, I close my video on how to crack any interview that you give, and I can give you my 100% guarantee that if you follow the tips that I've given, there's no way that you will not do well. At least you will not connect, you will not have a positive experience in the interview. Of course, you still need to work on the hard skills in the interview, and I'll do more videos about it for both analytics and product management. And if you want me to do it for any other domain, mention on the comment section below. But go with confidence and you'll do well. So with that, we close this video. See you next time. Ta-da!